Hello and welcome to Inside Iraq. I'm Jassim Azzawi. 5 years after the invasion of Iraq, the Gulf countries are still deeply worried, not knowing how the final chapter of this American misadventure will play out. Will the invasion of Iraq become a curtain raiser for a military strike against Iran? Will Iraq become a magnet for a global anti-American forces? Or perhaps more ominously for the Gulf countries, will Iraq disintegrate into civil war if US forces are withdrawn, leaving Iran to pick up the pieces and dominate the region for years to come? To discuss the concern of the Gulf countries and future scenarios, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Ghassan Atiyah, Director of Iraqi Foundation for Development and Democracy, and Dr. Hassan Al-Ansari, Director of Gulf Studies Centers in Qatar, and Dr. Michael Hudson, Director of Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, welcome to Inside Iraq. Dr. Hassan Al-Ansari, the Gulf countries are extremely worried about what is going on in Iraq and what the future might bring. Exactly what they are worried about?
Well, they are worried about the situation in Iraq in general. They are worrying about the future of Iraq as one country. They are worrying about the spread of the outside interference in Iraq in general. All of these stuff is a concern to the Gulf country. The Gulf countries always want to see, a united Iraq, one Iraq, stable Iraq, because the stability and the unity of Iraq, it's in our interest.
Ghassan Atiyah, they see the pictures and images and the mayhem and the killing and the internecine fighting among various factions in Iraq, and they keep hearing words like Shia and Sunni, something people in this part of the world for years and years never uttered. Now it's up in the open.
Actually, the Gulf countries, as much as they were in favor of the first Gulf War for the liberation of Kuwait, for the second episode, some of them were doubtful about it and have reservations. But the Americans were able to conduct the war of their own, hoping they achieve a success. When the military finished, the American unfortunately failed to deliver on the political side. What the Gulf will be afraid of, first, who is benefiting from the deteriorating condition in Iraq? They will consider Iran in this sense. Two, the division with Iraq, sectarian in particular, will spill over on the Gulf area. There are some minorities or majority Shia in some of the Gulf countries. How they will behave? Will they have another sectarian problem in their own midst?
Michael Hudson, in light of what Ghassan just said, that means even deeper involvement for the United States in the future, because it's a catch-22. They can neither stay nor leave?
Well, it depends on who you ask. We're in the middle of a presidential election campaign right now, and the Republican candidate, Senator McCain, is quite determined to keep the American forces there for as long as is necessary so that the original objectives, the original American objectives, can be achieved. And those objectives, of course, were to recreate an Iraq that would be stable and non-threatening to its neighbors. But if you look at the other candidates on the Democratic side, they are saying, no, this is indeed a misadventure. Why are Americans dying in a struggle that nobody can really understand anymore? So I think if you find that Senator Obama, one of the Democratic candidates, were he to win, he is quite committed to a steady drawdown of the American forces come what may. And if the Iraqis dissolve into civil war, and if it creates problems for the neighbors, I think the average American will say, well, that's their problem, not ours. We did what we could.
There is a saying in the United States, you break it, you own it. You break it, you fix it. They broke it big time. And now some American says, if they are going to go into civil war, that has nothing to do with us.
I think there is a responsibility in the United States to see that the situation at least be stable in that part of the world. The United States just cannot leave it right now just because they made a big blunder and mess. I think leaving Iraq is not going to help the situation.
Do you think a superpower like the United States is going to care about responsibility, let us stay and we fix it and Iraq will become a democracy, or they just wash off their hands of this and say, adios, we are out of here?
Well, I think, if they do that, I think the situation will get worse. As Dr.
Atiyah, they are liable to do that, aren't they?
No, the possibility of American quitting leaving cut and run, I doubt it.
Not 100%.
No, even if they decide today to leave, it will take them at least 6 months logistically to move the troops and what have you. But the issue now is for the next administration what to decide. One of the things is they have to have a multinational or sort of regional approach where you have to engage all neighboring countries, and I am an advocate of a regional package where you can solve Iraqi problem by stabilizing the whole area.
Michael Hudson, is that a possibility that one day come January when the next president, whether it's Hillary, Obama or McCain, a directive will be given to U.S. forces to draw down, perhaps 6 months down the road they are out, leave this entire critical region to Iran? Is that really in the cards?
Oh, I think it's very much in the cards, although I don't think you can do it in just 6 months. A drawdown for logistical reasons would take, I think, at least a year and probably longer, and it would be rather more gradual.
And then what?
Well, and then what? But, you know, ordinary Americans are very puzzled by people's reactions out here. The United States has been severely criticized by Iraqis, first of all, for invading and occupying their country. And many people in the neighborhood said, this is a very bad idea, a misadventure, it's colonialism coming back again. And now we say, well, maybe we should leave. And all of a sudden, people are saying, no, no, stay, stay. Well, I don't think if a Democratic administration comes in that we will be staying at the same level. And I think this will mean not only responsibilities for the United States, but for the countries in the region, and certainly for the local politicians in Iraq, to suddenly focus their minds on the situation they're in, that there won't be any more or not enough American troops to sort of rely on. So maybe it will be a stimulus
for the Gulf countries, Michael Hudson, perhaps more worrisome, Hassan Al-Ansari, for you is not whether there's 130,000 American troops in the region or not. It's just the socio-stability of the region is more concern to you. This is a rich country, this is energy-laden country, and if something like similar to Iraq is to happen, for instance, say in Bahrain or on the eastern shore of Saudi Arabia, alarm bell will ring all over the place.
We are already witnessing that in Kuwait right now, you know, when we see that the Shia community there is, you know, vocal.
For the assassination of Imad Mughniya.
Well, they are vocal, you know, they are talking about, you know, their rights, you know, and all this stuff. This could spill, you know, to the other part, to eastern Saudi Arabia, to Bahrain, where you have a sizable Shia minorities over there. Therefore, I think, you know, the stability of Iraq, you know, it's very important. But, you know, the United States, of course, if the United States decided to withdraw, I think it's a bad idea. But the United States, as Ghassan said, you know, they have to have some kind of package. They have to have a regional views about how we can deal about Iraq. It's just not feasible to leave the situation to the United States only, you know, to fix it, as you said.
This is a grand bargain. Today you mentioned, Ghassan, about, you know, 6 GCC countries along with Yemen, Iraq, as well as Iran. They have to come into some sort of a total package to stabilize the area in order to move forward. Somehow there is a linkage here between Iran's nuclear file and what is going on in Iraq. So far, the Bush administration has resisted all attempts for coupling it. Why do you think that in the future is going to change?
This is true with this administration. I think this administration is in no position to change course at all. This is they have new elections, only 8 months. We are talking about the next administration. The next administration have ample time to make its mind. First, they are aware force is not enough, they cannot do it. American reputation are down at the lowest ebb. The way out of this, by cut and leave, is not practical. No one will do it. But I would say the Americans can use withdrawing their forces as a political leverage. If they agree to a regional approach, they will say, look, we will leave, but you in the region, show us how can you maintain tranquility and stability of Iraq.
Michael Hudson, if you are in the Iranian leadership listening to the way Ghassan Al-Atiyah is outlining it about a grand bargain and all that, ostensibly that the United States, this must be music to your ears. Sooner or later, once the grain Satan is out, then I can dominate this region.
Well, I think the Iranian leadership should be quite satisfied with the way things have developed in the region. And I think it is true that the United States blundered strategically in providing an opening for Iran in an Iraq that we clearly did not understand. But let's be realistic. The United States cannot solve either the Iraq problem or the larger problem of stability in the Gulf. You can be sure that we are not going to put any more troops into Iraq, and even if we did, it might not help. The likelihood is there will be a drawdown. Moreover, the American reputation throughout the region is in the pits, not just because of Iraq, but because of Palestine and all sorts of other things. So the United States lacks the kind of influence and soft power and credibility and leverage that it used to have. So in a sense, the United States has become much weaker. And I think this raises an interesting question for the countries of the Gulf, which have depended very heavily on a kind of an American security umbrella for all these years. Now, what if the umbrella has holes in it? It's going to start raining.
That's a very interesting question, Michael Hudson. When we come back, I'm going to talk about how the trillions of dollars pouring into this region, as well as energy and energy concern, is going to play out in the next chapter. Stay with us. We'll take a short break now. We'll come back.